More than 100 retail workers lost their jobs immediately as half a dozen Nike stores across Sydney suddenly shut up shop.
Because a lot of people don't know that most of Nike's stores aren't owned by Nike. Hey, what up and welcome to another episode of Creased Heat, and a very important episode of Creased Heat because something kind of crazy has just happened. But before we get into that, let's go shopping. Please stop it. Oh, thank God. So as you can see, not all Nike stores are closed, right? But the news was quite alarming.
More than 100 retail workers lost their jobs immediately as half a dozen Nike stores across Sydney suddenly shut up shop. The snap closures came as the local operator went into liquidation, leaving gift cards worthless.
A lunch run for some new runners faltering at the finish line.
It's closed and had no idea it was even closing.
Lights down, door locked, stock abandoned as Nike at Neutral Bay shuts up shop. Among 6 Sydney stores operated by Australian licensee AF1, which suddenly closed on Friday. More than 100 casual and full-time staff terminated immediately. The liquidator says entitlements, including annual leave and wages, will be paid under the government scheme. Shock news that the global powerhouse is struggling in the Australian market.
We have seen sales figures reported for Nike Australia at about 8 to 10% below last year. In an increasingly competitive environment.
Nike back in the day, it used to be like really popular, but there's other brands now. Asics or Adidas and New Balance are a bit more of a draw card.
Joining a growing list of legacy retailers closing bricks and mortar.
Brands like Country Road, General Pants, increasingly finding the challenge to be sharp, relevant, reinventing themselves.
If you have a gift card or store credit from one of the shops which have closed down, you're out of luck. They won't be accepted at other Nike stores still open around Sydney. Those stores operated by different retail partners. Nike telling 9 News, we look forward to continuing to serve consumers through our growing fleet of Nike stores. Annalise Bolt, 9 News.
I mean, I saw it and it was like Nike closing stores and all this, and we just had one open at Newcastle. That's what you've just seen here. And I was curious, I was like, man, like, was it that company? Was it one of the others? Because a lot of people don't know that most of Nike's stores aren't owned by Nike. They're owned by different retail groups. And it just so happened that the retail group has gone into liquidation. Yes, these stores are being closed. There's like 7 different stores. Pitt Street Mall, one of my favorite stores, closed. But it was always kind of weird to me that there was one in George Street and one in Pitt Street Mall. But let's get into the particulars so we don't leave anything out, so there is no confusion. Because I'm seeing a lot of confusion online saying, damn, if Nike can't make it, all this type of stuff. I mean, the comments are going crazy on these news articles, but let's get into the particulars. So customers went into their local Nike store, whether it be at Neutral Bay, Castle Hill, Pitt Street Mall, and a bunch of other ones. So customers went into their local Nike store today and were greeted by closed doors and a note that said, all operations have ceased effective immediately, and then there was details for the liquidator. ASIC has shared that the business is being wound up. 113 workers have now just lost their jobs. They've essentially got to go through this whole system, this whole rigmarole of redundancy and things when a company goes into liquidation. And a lot of the time what these liquidators will do is, liquidate assets and everything like that. But in retail, unless something is sold, like, it remains the property of the company. When you get the invoice with your order, with your product as it comes in, it says in the fine print, product remains the property of whatever brand it is until sold. So unless you've paid for it, you don't own it. So it's interesting how they're going to be, because they don't own any of the buildings. This is all rent, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how they liquidate assets to be able to pay for staff's wages, sick pay, everything like that. This is done through a Commonwealth scheme, but I do know someone who was going through this quite recently. I think it only wrapped up last year. But he was essentially chasing them. He was helping the liquidators as well. It's making sure his staff were all looked after, everything like that. But then, like, the higher ups are generally the last to be sorted out, because that's where the packages are bigger, the money's being spent, everything like that. And the liquidators are trying not to do that. So my thoughts initially are with the staff. Me not being able to go to a shop, who cares? I hope the staff get looked after properly. Gift cards, store credits, and even their loyalty program, I would have had at least a $50 voucher on my account, but all that's gone. They're not transferable to different stores because, like we said, they're owned by completely different retail companies. So if you remember when we did the video for the store that's just opened in Newcastle, I actually met the CEO and he told me he was going to own every Nike store in Australia. That was his goal. So did he know about this going in? I'm not too sure. So initially with Nike's statement, because Nike came out with a statement as well. We have appreciated the partnership and look forward to continuing to serve consumers through our growing fleet of Nike stores, multi-brand retail partners, and Nike.com. Had I not seen that statement, I could have even potentially thought that AF1, which is the company that's gone into liquidation, had just terminated their contract with Nike. But we also have the information about the liquidators and everything like that. AF1 has had Nike accounts since 2006. If you did not know, back then, leading up to, I want to say maybe around like 2013 or something, they pulled the pin on it, but you could just buy a Nike store as a franchise, which is absolutely insane. Because if I knew that, I would have done everything in my power to be able to have my own Nike store, because what a flex. AF1 was one of the biggest. There was retail, the retail group, I think was the other one. And they had the majority of them. Nike had a couple, and then there's also some smaller owners that may have one or two sort of thing. The retail group essentially got bought out by this new company that they've got the goal of owning every single Nike store in Australia. They own Nike stores all across the world, and their whole thing is to go big. You saw the store in Newcastle. It's the biggest store in Australia and New Zealand combined, and it's in Newcastle. I did say it was on par with Pitt Street Mall in terms of size, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe, but Pitt Street Mall's gone now, so it definitely is the biggest. Yeah, this is so crazy, and I'm seeing people like bugging out, going, you know, how can Nike not make it? Like, Nike's one of the biggest brands. You saw in the news article the kids saying, oh, Nike used to be big, but they're not as big now. It would have been interesting to see what was on those kids' feet anyway. They're wearing like Hood Rich and different brands, but like, what's on the feet though? Man, for the vast majority of people, and I saw this in the comments. The comment section was crazy. I'll just post a few here. But the comment section saying, what, Nike doesn't own their own stores? Fair point. They own a couple, but the vast majority are owned by retail groups. But this is not new for the retail sector. I remember seeing a video where, I want to say it was like Cam's Kicks setting up a store, and the majority of the mall was like empty. Stores have been like basically gone for a long time, and he was able to just like get racking and things like that. Over here in Australia, I would say buying online is still a huge thing, but it's not as easy and as accessible as it is over in America. For the vast majority of Australia. If you're in Sydney, if you're in Melbourne, no problem. If I'm to buy something from Sydney, it can take a week, and it's only 2 hours down the road. I remember getting a pair of the orange lobsters from Melbourne to here. It's an 8-hour drive. They were lost in transit. Like, it's a, pretty easy drive. But we don't have the logistical network that, say, America does. America also has so many more companies within that field. So, like, price-wise, it's so competitive that the customer just wins. We need stores. We honestly do. But this is a growing trend within retail. You've had Noni B, Miller's, Katie's, Rivers, Stax, Jeans West, Ali, and the list go on. They've all just can't cope with the current climate. And the problem is, we do want it now. For me, like, I prefer going into stores, but I feel like I'm a dying breed. I feel like most people are happy to sit at a computer and they rock up eventually.
7 hours later.
My camera absolutely just died just now, so we've been like half an hour between what we're talking about, but absolute professional. I've been doing a lot of stuff with this camera recently, especially over on the other channel. If you like sneakers, we all love sneakers. Do you like other stuff? You might like other stuff. Go check out the other channel. I've almost monetized that channel in like a fifth of the time that it has taken to do this channel. So that's crazy. But yeah, where does this leave us? Nike seem to be in damage control to an extent. They're, putting out a statement to make sure people know that Nike isn't failing. Nike isn't getting liquidated. Like, it seems like people are going on with the comments. It's just a retail partner. And there's multiple other retail partners. The main one, the retail group, they now become something else. I can't remember the name. I did meet the CEO at the Newcastle store. He told me they were going to take over all the Nike stores. Did he know anything about this? I don't know. It seems very abrupt. The fact that one day they were open, one day they weren't, effective immediately, terminology like that, it's kind of strange. For me, my usual shopping trip, I will go to Pitt Street Mall, I will go to galleries, Inku, everything like that. Sometimes I'll go to Foot Locker at Town Hall, but sometimes I'll just go to the Pitt Street Mall one. Very rarely do I go to Nike George Street. For me, this is a very big change, but all jokes aside, it's terrible for the retail landscape. We're already seeing so many stores shut down recently, and it just seems like we're moving towards more like a monopoly. If you look at your grocery stores, back in the day you had IGA still around. For the most part, they're independent. You used to have Bilo, you used to have Franklin's, everything like that. Now you pretty much have Woolworths and Coles with a little bit of Aldi and IGA on the side. Almost said Franklin's, but similar things. But when you look at even, say, a couple of years ago, in terms of sporting goods stores, I mean, I worked at Amart All Sports. They were the biggest company in Queensland. They ended up being bought out by the company that owned Rebel Sport. They decided, why do we need both? We got double the admin, double all of this. Let's just put it down to one. Initially, it didn't work because, let's say in Queensland, they're so entrenched with Amart All Sports, they don't know what Rebel Sports are. And Queenslanders support Queensland things. This is going back quite a few years now. Everyone knows Rebel Sport now. Everyone knows Rebel Sport's #1. You're seeing this all over the place. Rivers, I don't know how they were ever successful. They made pretty average sort of stuff. It was always on special. It was basically marketed to your dad. Similar can be said about Miller's and all these other stores. But then you see like Jeans West, Stax. It comes down to a couple of things. People just don't have the money that they did. I can't find the exact one. My friend shared it, and he shared something else as well. And it's saying Australia is better only than Mexico on the economic rankings. That's terrible. Obviously, when you look at population, our population isn't very big. We have a lot of land, but it's only densely populated in certain coastal areas for the most part. In terms of the size of our land and our population, minuscule. Kangaroos outnumber us, I'm pretty sure. So that's why for a long time, Nike actually had most of their online stock in a warehouse in Europe for ages. Now we're getting stock locally. It's great. You buy something from Nike online. It comes from Nike Melbourne. Happy days. Very easy. very quick. You're not waiting 2 weeks for your products. But yeah, like, the first thing I thought of when all this happened was like, which retailer was it? Because I already knew how that was structured. Part of me was like, I think it's the other one. This other one is backed by a major corporation, whereas AF1 for the most part I feel like is an Australian company. If you go on their website right now, they're still promoting creating retail brands from the ground up to help you. They're showing their Nike store. They're advertising that they are the premier Nike store in Sydney since 2006. But RIP, man, 2025, 2006 to 2025, not bad, not too shabby. Just, but what happens from here? The guy from this other company has said he wants to own all the Nike stores. Will he pick up a few? I say he, like he's personally buying them, but will the company pick up a few? I certainly hope so. For people that were relying on these stores, would go to these stores, everything like that. I would love to see them take on Pitt Street Mall and redevelop it. I would love to see them make it like a modern Nike store, similar to what you saw at Newcastle, similar to what I've shown you in the Philippines and everything like that, because, man, Sydney deserves that type of store. I just hope that there is a swift outcome for those staff in terms of getting their money that they're owed. So, but this has been another episode of Crease Teep. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments, what were you feeling initially when you saw that news? Has this given you a little bit of peace of mind? It's probably going to be all over the place in terms of the chops, because we went from like half an hour between when the camera died. But man, it's a crazy day seeing so many news articles and everything like that. The one narrative I kept seeing in comments was like, oh, this is what you get, go woke, go broke. Oh, I saw Nike promoting like sports bras with men's and women's, this is why it happened. This is not why it happened. We've just outlaid how it happened, why it happened. It was a company that owned Nike stores that went broke. Nike will have forever money. I'll probably just jinx Nike now. Nah, let's be honest. Nike has been around forever. Not really forever, but in terms of what we know in the landscape of sporting, they've been number one for a very long time. I can't see anything taking them off their pedestal. Not at this point, but you never know. We'll see you next week. Peace. Similar sort of thing with, I think it was, I was talking to the reps back in the day when I was managing stores, and let's say headgear, right? Steedon was the number one headgear within New South Wales, but in Queensland it was Madison, and that was a Queensland company. Things like that, kind of strange, going off topic, but the fuck is that? It's a very loud car from a distance, because where I'm hearing that there isn't even a road. So, outtakes, I guess.